Hi, this is Noah Zerby. Welcome to my Model United Nations video series. This video series focuses on preparing students to be familiar with the rules of debate used at the Model United Nations of the Far West Conference, held every April in San Francisco. While the video focuses on the rules for MUNFW, the basic concepts of parliamentary procedure are applicable to Model United Nations conferences more generally. In this video, we'll look at three of the most common rules you'll use at MUNFW. P23, which is used to comment on a speech, P25, which is used for a number of points, and P27, which is most often used to suspend the meeting. A P23 short speech or comment has two primary uses. It can be used to make a comment on the speech just given by the most recent speaker on the speakers list, or it can be used to add yourself to the speakers list. At conference, formal debate is comprised of delegates from the speakers list giving speeches to the committee, followed by other delegates giving comments or asking questions about their speech. If you went to comment on the previous speaker, you would raise your placard after the speaker is done when the chair asks if there are any points or motions on the floor. The chair will recognize or call on the delegate by country name. At that point, once you're recognized, you would state that you rise under P23 Comment. The chair would note that it is in order and give you a short period of time, usually less than 1 minute, to comment on the previous speech. When you've finished your comment, it's customary to thank the chair, at which point the chair would call on other delegates for points or motions. The other use of a P23 is to add yourself to the speakers list. When a new agenda item or a new phase of debate is begun, the chair will normally open the speakers list, providing you the opportunity to rise under P23 to add yourself to that list. At some point, the chair will stop recognizing delegates and ask that any additional requests to be added to the speakers list be sent to the chair in writing. Once you've given your speech, you're no longer on the speakers list, but you may request to be added back onto the list by sending a note to the chair. The P25 is arguably the most versatile rule at conference. It's used for a number of different points. A P25 point of inquiry is used to ask a question to the most recent speaker. This is probably the most common use of the rule. At conference, you would wait for a delegate on the speakers list to complete their speech. Once they are done, the chair will ask if there are any points or motions on the floor. This is your signal to raise your placard to be recognized or called upon by the chair. Once recognized, you would tell the chair that you rise under a P25 point of inquiry. The chair would inform you that that's in order. Questions or points of inquiry at conference can be a little tricky. While the conference wants to encourage dialogue between delegates, they want to avoid the back and forth that does not advance the conversation or, worse still, devolves into argument. Because of this, the chair will usually remind you to please ask your question through the chair. In the simplest terms, questions should not be framed using the second person, you, but always the third person, preferably by country names. An example might be useful. Let's say you're representing France, and you have a question about a proposal by Mozambique. You would not ask, how do you intend to pay for this? Rather, you would say, the delegate from France would like to know how the delegation of Mozambique intends to finance this proposal, or something of the sort. This sounds a little stilted, and it is, but it gets easier as you practice. Once the question is asked, the chair will ask the delegate who has the floor whether or not they would like to answer the question. The delegate, in our example Mozambique, then has several choices. They can choose to answer the question posed, and then speak briefly again to address the point raised. They can decline to answer the question, or they can offer to answer the question in writing or at the next caucus. This process continues until all P23 comments and P25 points of inquiry are exhausted. At that point, the speaker is then excused, and the chair calls the next speaker from the speakers list. While the P25 point of inquiry is the most commonly used point at conference, the P25 rule also encompasses other parliamentary points. A P25 point of information is used to ask a question of the chair. This rule is normally used to clarify the flow of debate, the status of working papers or draft resolutions, or any other point about which the delegate is unclear. It is only used to ask a question to the chair, and never used to ask a question of another delegate. A P25 point of personal privilege is used to ensure the comfort of delegates and ensure their ability to participate in the meeting. Relevant points of personal privilege might include room temperature, it's too hot or too cold, or speaker volume, being unable to hear the speakers. Finally, a P25 point of order is used to ensure the correct application of parliamentary procedure by the body, particularly if the chair has misapplied the rules of debate. In general, I encourage delegates to remember that their chairs are also students, many of whom are chairing a meeting for the first time. The use of a P25 point of order in this context should generally be avoided unless the decision of the chair is actively undermining the will of the body. Unlike a P25 point of inquiry, which is only in order immediately after a speech by another delegate and is limited in number, all other P25 rules, points of information, points of personal privilege, and points of order, are always in order and may be used in any phase of debate. Arguably, one of the most common rules used at conference will be the P27 Suspension of the meeting. This rule is used to suspend the rules of formal debate and move into an informal meeting, usually caucusing, in order to work on working papers and draft resolutions. A P27 must include the length of time the meeting will be suspended and the purpose of the suspension. Thus, after the chair asks if there are any points or motions on the floor, a delegate might rise under a P27 in order to propose a 30-minute suspension for the purpose of caucusing or a 1-hour suspension for lunch. The P27 requires a simple majority to pass. If there are multiple P27s proposed, the body will vote on each one until all of them are defeated or one of them finally passes. This concludes our look at the most common rules used at the debate in Model United Nations of the Far West. Once you understand the various uses of P23, P25, and P27, you'll understand about 2/3 of what's taking place at conference.